Hello everyone. Welcome to Software Testing Expert Talk series. Today we have a guest who is a software test consultant having 10 plus years of experience in IT industry and skilled in automation performance and API testing tools. He has also received Best Employee Award while working with one of the organization in his past for the quality work he has done for that organization. Our guest is Venkatesh Guddati. Welcome to our show, Venkatesh.
Thanks, Ajay. So, yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you and Arun for inviting me to this show, Software STET. So, yeah, it would be my pleasure participating in this show. So, yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Venkatesh. Guys, today Venkatesh will take us through the most widely used performance testing tool named as JMeter and will show us how it can help us in achieving best performance for the application under test. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thanks, Ajay. Yeah. So, hello everyone. So, yeah, today we will be covering three aspects mainly. So, what is performance testing and how to do performance testing. So these are the things that we are going to cover. And one more thing is why we need to do the performance testing. So these are the main aspects that we are going to cover today, especially how to do performance testing. So we will be using and we will be seeing JMeter tool, which is one of a widely used open source performance testing tool currently in the market. So we will be going through the live session, how to execute the scripts from JMeter tool and what are the various components are available in the JMeter tool and how to do the reporting from JMeter and all the stuff today. So yeah, first I will be starting with what is performance testing. Okay. So basically in short, the definition of performance testing is, so it is basically measuring your application's speed, stability, and scalability. So it's in simple terms, it's just three things: speed, stability, and scalability of measuring these three things of your application, which is under test. You can call it as the AUT. So this is basically about performance testing. So if you want to measure these three things, right, so you have to apply various techniques, frameworks, you need to use different tools, and you need to analyze the results. That's called performance engineering. And eventually, so your end goal is to find out whether there are any bottlenecks, especially performance bottlenecks, are present in your application or not. So that's the end goal of performance testing. So basically, to achieve this, we need to use different type of techniques, different types of tests, and various tools. So when it comes to different types of tests, so basically in performance testing, we have different, we used to perform different types of testings like stress testing, spike testing, load testing, volume testing, and testing. So these are the various types of testings that are performed as part of performance testing. So normally in real world or real performance testing scenarios, so we will be performing these types of testing based on our needs. Suppose spike testing. Suppose if you are testing any of these e-commerce applications, suppose your end goal is to test any e-commerce application, right? So so basically what happens in e-commerce applications is like, so suddenly there will be a huge load at particular point of time. You will be having knowledge of various knowledge and using various e-commerce sites. Like, so what happens, like at particular day or at particular time, so let's suppose there is a flash sale for mobiles is going on. So at that particular point of time, what will happen is there is n number of users immediately accessing that application just to get that product. Okay. So what will happen is, so during, I mean, before that particular time interval and after that particular time interval, the load will be very much similar. But during that particular time, there will be n number of users, or huge load will be applied on the application. So you need to measure what's happening, whether your application is capable of handling that much of load or not. So if you want to measure that type of things, right, you need to use spike testing. So spike testing means when there is a sudden increase of load, so how your application is behaving. So as I said earlier, right, these things will be mainly depends on your test scenario and your end goal and the type of application that you are using. So load testing means, so basically that's the fundamental testing that we are doing in terms of in performance testing. So you need to apply different types of loads and measure how your application is behaving. Your those metrics can be your CPU usage and memory usage, and how your DB is performing, how your APIs are responding. There are various KPIs that we are capture as part of performance testing. So you need to gradually increase your load and find out how your application is responding. That's called the load testing. So stress testing is like, you need to find the threshold point. So you need to stress your application, like you need to stress your infrastructure by putting huge amounts of load and find out the threshold point where it is breaking. Okay, so if you find that threshold point, you can say like, our application can only handle like 10K visual, I mean, concurrent users, or 10K visual users. So it cannot handle more than that. Or your infrastructure can handle certain amount of load. It cannot handle more than that. Why? Because you already know. So when the application is breaking, so find that threshold point, right? You need to perform stress testing. And there is other testing called endurance testing, or you can call it as soak testing. So you will put your application under some sustained load over the period of time, like 8 hours. 8 hours is basic, I mean, minimum work, business hours, right? So either 8 hours, 10 hours, depends on your business requirement. You need to put your application under load for over the period of time to find out how your application is responding. So basically to find the memory leaks. So we usually perform the this endurance testing. Like that, we have different types of testings available. So those things will be done basic, depends on the business scenario, depends on the client requirement, depends on your end goal, what you are going to measure. So that's types of testing. And when it comes to, I mean, we already covered what is performance testing, that with this discussion, and then we need to find out, I mean, we will go to why we need to do the performance testing. Okay, so I mean, like earlier, like if you take 10 or 15 years back, so people used to do the performance testing at the end. It's like once your development cycle is done and your functional testing cycle is done, and your automation scripts and everything, once everything is over, then only people get the stable build with everything is done, everything is developed. Then only people used to allocate some 30 to 45 days of time dedicated for performance testing, and they used to measure the performance bottlenecks at that time. So what's the main, I mean, the basic disadvantage with this approach? So it's like, so you are almost at the end of your product release cycle. So it's like you have only 2 months of time. Like they already allocated like 1 month time for performance testing, right? So once we give no go, right, then they're going to launch the production. Okay, they don't have any backup plan at that time. So if so during performance testing, so if we happen to find any bottleneck or any architectural bug or any major issue, okay, that comes from performance testing, right? So it's going to create a lot of problems for clients and user stakeholders, everyone. Why? Because so again, they need to go from the scratch. So suppose it's an architectural bug. So the architecture itself is not right. So people again go back to right from the development cycle, they need to revisit their architecture, and they need to develop few components again, and those things again go to this cycle. Testers need to do the functional testing, and we need to run various scripts, automation scripts, and then again we need to do the performance testing. So for this, right, so you're going to spend a lot of man hours, a lot of money, and so you need to give a proper reasoning to the clients why the delivery got delayed and all those things. So nowadays, because of the cloud infrastructure and the hyperscale and large scale applications, enterprise applications people are developing. So the approach towards performance testing is simply changing with agile and all. So instead of instead of doing the performance testing at the end, right? So people are nowadays starting the performance testing as part of development cycle itself. Like in agile we have sprints, right? So every sprints people are doing along with functional and automation testing, people started doing the performance testing as well. So the basic advantage that you will get from this approach is, instead of finding those architectural bugs and major bugs, blockers at the end, so you can easily find out those bugs depends on the sprint at the starting of your development cycle, so mid of your development cycle. So this approach will eventually reduce the efforts that going to spend on that particular bug, and so it will give that what you got, that leverage and that grip over the application to the testers and developers and everyone. So you will get ample amount of time to fix the bugs. So this approach is nowadays followed by various organizations. So they simply doing the performance testing as early as possible rather than doing it at the end. So it's nowadays, if I put it in simple terms, it's part of what you call the agile cycle itself. So it's part of sprint. Okay, that's how, that's the reason why we need to do the performance testing at the end, and at the beginning rather than doing at the end. Okay, and how to do the performance testing. So basically various tools are available in the market, right from early you can say there are tools like Loadrunner, which is available in the market from like 20-25 years, and there are various commercial tools which are available in the market like Loadrunner, NeoLoad. So these are widely used commercial tools in the market. So when it comes to the open source tool, so JMeter is the widely used tool, and that's one of the best tool which is available in the market in terms of performance testing. Why? Because so it is having GUI. So JMeter, you can what you call write your scripts using the GUI mode, and you can debug it very easily. And there is a lot of community support available for JMeter. Why? Because it's been in the market from like 20 years. So there are a lot of open source, community support, and people who are expertise in JMeter are available in QA community. They are sharing their knowledge. So if you have any doubts, you can get those answers very quickly if you go to the community, QA community. And so JMeter is so it's developed based on Java. So people who are having like automation testers, so people who are automation testers, if they are using Java, they can easily learn JMeter. Why? Because the scripts and the language that you are going to write the performance tests, so you can make use of Java as well. So there is a Bean Shell scripters which are available in JMeter. You can write your code in Java and you can execute that code. So if you have prior Java knowledge, then you can easily go for JMeter. And you can there is no end. You can simply trigger n number of users. You can use master slave concept to do the distribution testing. So there is no end for the virtual user. So if you have the infrastructure ready, you can simulate n number of virtual users using JMeter. So that's basically the overview of the JMeter tool and few other tools which are also available in the market. But right now our main focus is JMeter, right? So that's why. So we now we will go through few things like how to install JMeter and what are the prerequisites that we need before installing the JMeter, and we will see our first script, how to write a simple script using JMeter and how to execute and how to analyze those results. So we can
So
go
Venkatesh,
to those things as well. So yeah,
Venkatesh. So before going forward for
yeah,
the
go ahead.
yeah, so before going forward for the prerequisite, I have a question here. Like, what happen? Like, if we do not do performance testing, then what impact would remain there on the leasing application in production environment?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ajay. So if you don't perform any performance testing on your application, right? So what will happen is like, so as I told you earlier, using few examples, suppose your application is required to handle certain amount of load. Suppose just assume like n number of users are going to logged into your system and they are doing various operations. For that you have certain amount of infrastructure, right? So suppose you are hosting your servers in AWS or Azure environment. For that you have certain amount of like T3, T2, T1 machines. You have some X amount of infrastructure, but you haven't tested that infrastructure yet, right? So suppose like n number of users are accessing that application. So suddenly there is a spike. So you did not expect that spike. So suddenly the n number of users got multiplied. So due to heavy traffic, as I told you, right, the best example is the e-commerce one. You suddenly conducted a flash sale and you haven't performed any testing on that. So there is huge spike in the number of users that going to handle the system, but you haven't tested your infrastructure whether it's able to handle that much of load or not. So what will happen is simply your application will crash. So the impact because of that, right, the impact that you are going to create on your customers is like you're losing your business, right? So there will be there's like a bad reputation to your company, okay, just because you haven't performed any performance testing. So these type of things will happen if you don't perform proper performance testing, and if your application is having a lot of bottlenecks, and if you don't find those bottlenecks, that could be anything. So that's the just application server example that I just given. So it could be deviant. Okay, your database is not able to handle certain amount of load, so it will simply crash. So these type of things will simply make your application looks very bad. So it again give wrong impression to the customers or users that eventually going to use that application. So uh, if you, so the thing is very simple. So if so functional testers are doing any functional testing on your application, right, they will simply use only one user login, right? So they don't use multiple users, they don't simulate that much of load at a time. Why? Because they don't have the required amount of tools and they don't think in that way, right? So they will only concentrate on whether the functionality is working or not, whether if I click this button, whether this functionality is coming or not. Security testers, they will mostly concentrate on whether there is any security related issues, any threats. So those things, the automation testers, they will simply they will do the regression cycles and they will automate some XYZ components and they will simply rerun those scripts. But if you don't do performance testing, so no one is there to put that X amount of load that is coming to your system or concurrent users, and who is going to test your infrastructure, your database with large volumes. and these type of things has to be there in place. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of issues and these crashes you're going to see, right? So if you closely follow US Black Friday sales and all, so you will see a lot of news articles about some XYZ site got crashed during Black Friday sale. So these things will happen. Why? Because during Black Friday and these Christmas days, so a lot of people are doing these online purchases and all. So that's why huge amount of load, even though they are doing a lot of performance testing, but still the crashes are happening. So you can assume like how much revenue that they are going to lose, because once the application got crashed, so then it will at least take 1 to 2 hours to do the backup and to rerun your application. So you're going to lose a lot of revenue, a lot of users, and the reputation will be, I mean, you'll get bad reputation because of those things. So it's must to do the performance testing. If you don't, you will end up with these type of issues. I hope I answered this
Okay.
question.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. That actually are correct answer for my question. Thank you, Venkatesh. You can go proceed with
Yeah,
the prerequisite and installation of
yeah.
JMeter.
I will share my screen. Let me know once you see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
You can see your screen. Okay, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I told you before, right? So JMeter is developed on Java. So before going to install your JMeter, right, you need to install Java in your machine. So you can simply go to your command prompt and you can uh, run this command and check whether Java is already installed or not. So since my machine is already having Java, so I can see Java version here. If you don't have Java, you can simply go to our Artil site and you can download Java. Okay, so you can go to this site and you can download Java and check this command again. Okay, if it is successfully installed, you can see the version of your Java. Okay, that's the prerequisite for
Fine.
JMeter.
Okay.
And for
Okay.
JMeter installation, so you can go to JMeter official site, jmeter.apache.org. So this is the official website of JMeter, and this is the latest version. Apache JMeter 5.4.1 is the latest version, and here you can see the binaries and source. You need to download the binaries here. So Apache JMeter 5.4.1.zip file. Okay, if you are using Windows based operating system, otherwise you can download this .tgz. Okay, if it is like Linux based OS. So since my machine is Windows 1, I downloaded 5.4.1 zip file. Okay, I already downloaded. So I will just go through that path and show. So this is the JMeter version that I downloaded. If you open it here, so you can see bin folders, libraries, extras, and all those things. So I will go through all this stuff later. So mainly you need to go to your bin folder. Okay, here you can see various files, and here, right, you can see Apache JMeter executable jar file. Okay, you can so let me close my JMeter first. Okay, you can invoke the JMeter from here, okay, using the jar file, or there is a batch file here, JMeter batch file. Okay, this one. You can invoke it from here as well. So, okay. So I will just open JMeter. So now it will open the JMeter. So this is the user interface of JMeter. As I told you earlier, right? So the main advantage of JMeter is it's a UI based tool. Okay, you don't need to write like code and everything to configure your requests and trigger your stuff and debugging purpose. So it's very simple tool. It's a straightforward UI based tool. You can easily debug and easily configure your requests using this tool. Okay, so here you can see various components. So once I start going through the session, right, I will explain each and every detail. Okay. So for now, what I will do is I will explain three main components of JMeter. Let me add a thread group. request resolution. Okay. So the highest point or the first node of JMeter is the test plan. So so if you add the test plan, right, you can I mean, by default it will come with test plan. You can give any name. So to your test plan, I am giving demo test plan here. Okay, so you can if you just click here, you can see that name. Okay, if you can give any comments you want. So user defined variables. So if you want to use any variables throughout the execution of this test plan, right, you can configure these variables here. You can add it and you can give the proper name and value for this variables, and use those variables in the next so under the test plan you can create n number of thread groups. So these user defined variables will be common for all the thread groups. Okay, so if you have any such variables, you can configure it here. Okay, there will be some options. So these are the default setting. Run thread groups consecutively and run thread groups after shutdown and functional test mode. So this is the default configurations. If you want to run your thread groups one at a time, okay, so you need to select this option. Otherwise, you don't need to select this one. Okay, so by default we don't select this option. So if you have multiple thread groups, like I will add one more thread group here. If your requirement is to run these thread groups parallelly, then you have to check this option. So sorry, if you want to execute these thread group one at a time, okay, then you need to set this option. Otherwise these things will run parallel. Okay.
Right,
okay.
right.
So
Okay.
you can go to thread group here. So in the thread group section, you can see various options like what. So suppose this is normal thing. So if you want to edit this name, you can edit it like this. Okay, comments, you can give some comments. Okay. So when it comes to this one, right? So under this, you have multiple requests. Let's assume you have multiple requests. Okay. So you have multiple requests. So what happens when this request fails? Should I need to execute this request, or that the test should stop? So you can configure that option here. So by default, it will continue the test. So you can easily read here like action to be taken after sample error. So it will continue by default. If you want to stop your thread, you can stop the thread. If you want to stop the thread and continue the next loop, you can use this option. You can stop the test itself. You can stop the test. So stop the test will immediately stop the test rather than in a proper manner. It is like a hard stop. Okay. So you can configure these options based on your requirement. So this is the main properties section. Okay. How many number of users you want to if you want to put on your application under test, that you can configure here, like 100 virtual users, 10. So you can simply configure here. So JMeter will trigger those number of users by using this option. So ramp up period in seconds. So ramp up period means I will tell you simple calculation here. So if I give something like this, 10 virtual users and 100 ramp up. Okay, this is in seconds. So it will be 100 divided by 10. Okay. So that means every 10 seconds, one virtual user will be active. Okay. 100 divided by 10 means 10. So every 10 seconds, one user will be active. The 10th user will be active after 90 seconds. Okay. Sorry, after 100 seconds. So it will simply take this time. See, so these things you will get the question why we need to simulate all the. I mean, you need to use all these things. Why can't I give simply one here? So that's a real time example, right? So see, if you have applications, it's not like every application people will simply once the application is live, simply they will simply bombard that application. They will not do any transactions, right? So you have to simulate the behavior which is as close to as close to your business scenarios, right? It should be very close to your business scenario. It should replicate your business scenario. So normally, right, you need to talk to your business analysts, and you can take the example of if the application is already live, right? You can get the SLAs from production, or you can get the SLAs from the business analysts or product owners. So you can get some data from those people, and based on that, you need to configure your tests that should mimic the end users actions. Okay, so for these reasons, we will use these type of options. So instead of bombarding the application with n number of users, we will configure the ramp up times here so that it will be as close to as the real business scenario. Okay, so loop count. So how much time, I mean, how many times this transaction should go? Suppose just to avoid confusion, I will remove these things. Okay. Okay. Suppose if you give one here, okay, everything will be one. Okay. Now this transaction will be executed for one user, and the one user will come to the application. I mean, go from the JMeter within 1 second of time, and it will execute only once. Why? Because your loop count is only one. Okay. If you give the loop count of 10 here, the same thing will be it's like a loop. The same thing will be repeated for 10 times. Okay. If you give infinite here, so it will be endless. So either you need to stop your execution, or you need to configure this one. How much time you want to execute your test? Suppose if I give something like 3600 second, and I have selected this infinite loop. So what will happen is this test will execute for 1 hour. Okay. The first user will come and he will do the transaction, and again he will log into the system. He will execute the request again, and this cycle will happen for 3600 seconds, means 1 hour. So I told you, right, during my introduction as well. So load test means you need to apply various type of loads, and with various parameters. So these parameters will be these things. So I can execute my test for 1 hour. I can execute my test for. So I told you, right, endurance test. Okay. Endurance test we need to run at least for 8 hours. So in that case, what will happen is 3600 into 8. Whatever the number that comes, you need to give that number here. Okay. So it could be like 50,000 seconds or whatever. So you need to, so the test will execute for this much of time. Okay. So if you want to keep your users on the system for higher number of time, you can control it by using the thread lifetime duration section. You can give the number and it will execute based on. So if you don't want to give any specific time, so then just remove this section and you can control it using this thing. So what will happen is this thread will execute for 10 loops, and it will automatically stop once the user completes the 10 loops, right? It will automatically stop the execution. Why? Because you are not giving any option here. Okay. So these are some of other options. Whether you want to use the same user for each iteration, or you want to use different users. Okay, delay thread creation until needed. So if you these are some advanced options. So you can delay the thread creation until the required amount of time. So rather than creating the all threads what you called parallelly. So for that you can use these things, and there is another option called start delay. So instead of executing the threads immediately, you can delay for some time, like 100 seconds. So it will delay 100 seconds so before executing your first thread. Okay. So those are some of the options which are available, which are related to thread group. Okay. So
I have a question, Venkatesh, here.
Yeah.
So question is, I have seen action to be taken after a sampler error. Could you just let me know in basic thing, like what is sampler?
Yeah. So the sampler means it will be nothing but your request. Okay. So here, right, if once you execute, right, Okay, for each request, you can see the sample request, sample response, and so sample is nothing but one request. Okay, so what will happen if some XYZ request got failed? So that's nothing but the sample. Sample is nothing but request here.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me open one test that I already created so that you can see. Yeah, so this is one test plan that I already created for this demo purpose. So so if you see here, there is a thread group and I configure it 111. And so under this launch section, I have one website which is tutorialsninja.com. So I'm going to perform these tests on this website basically. So we'll go to this transaction controller later. First, we will see a few things about this HTTP request. Okay. So so before going to this section, right? So let me show you something. Okay, so I will just show you a few things. Okay, so so you people will be wondering, right, how I got all these requests here. Okay, how I configured all these things here. So for that, right, we have few things. So if you go to this test plan section and right click, if you go to this add section, there will be a non-test element section. So here you can see the HTTP test script recorder. Okay, you can add this recorder here. Okay, if you add this recorder, you can see these options. Okay.
Okay.
What is the global set? I mean, port number. So what's the domain against which you want to record the things? So if you go to the test plan creation, right? So target controller. So you can see various controllers here. Since I haven't covered the controller section, I'm not going to this thing. So for default, you can use the recording controller. Okay. Whether you want to group the things or not. So these are some HTTP sampler settings. And if you go to advanced things, so you can add some filters here. So if you click on this add suggested excluded, right? Excluded. So these things will be by default excluded from your recording. Okay. So basically you can record your actions. So whatever the action that you are going to perform, right? You can record your action. So if you click on the start button, right? So based on the domain name that you configured, it will open that particular website and it will record all these actions. Okay, you just need to simply go to that website and perform all the actions. Suppose this website, right, that I have used. Just a second. So so this is the website, right? So tutorial. So here I can search for iPad. Yeah, you can add this iPhone to cart, and you can go to that cart here, and you can do the checkout, and you can purchase this item by using checkout and filling all this data. Okay, let's assume that's your action, right? So you need to click on start here, and it will open the Firefox browser, and you need to, I mean, by default it will open in Firefox only. So you need to record all your actions, and these things will, so once that is done, it will generate a JMX. So all these what you call JMeter scripts will have this JMX extension. So you can simply open that script in JMeter and you can see all the results here. So this is one way to record the your actions or JMeter HTTP request. So there is another way. Okay, if you people aware, right? So there is a beautiful extension which is given by the BlazeMeter guys. So this is one of the load testing cloud platform, BlazeMeter. which supports JMeter file uploading, and you can simply upload the JMeter files in this JMeter platform, and you can simply what you call execute your tests on cloud. So these guys actually provided the extension. So personally, I use this extension a lot. Why? Because this is much simpler, and you can configure various things here. You just need to add this extension to your Chrome. Okay, and if you go to your extensions here, right, you can find the okay, this JMeter this thing here. Okay,
right.
so this is the thing. So if you click on this thing, so it will open this small pop-up window. Okay, so using this recorder, okay, using this recorder as well, you can perform your actions. So I will show you.
Okay.
Okay.
So Venkatesh, this is a paid one or a
no, this is open source.
Like
this is open source. It's not a paid.
Fine. Okay.
So that's the main reason why so it started recording. When as soon as I click on that red button, it started recording. So you can perform your actions. It will capture. You can see closely observe here. Okay. If suppose if I type iPhone, right? If I click on enter, so suppose I will create one more thing called checkout. Okay, and I will do the checkout add to cat. So you can see that the numbers are changing. So it is simply capturing the traffic. Okay. So if I do the checkout, so see, it's doing the checkout and order. So you can add one more transaction here, and you can simply go to checkout, and you can give these things all the data. You can fill up all the data, and you can simply, so these things will be recorded here. Once you stop your recording, and it will simply ask you to download that particular file. Okay. It's done. So if you want to download that file, right, you just need to log in. So you can go to their site using your credentials, right? So you can sign up and you can log in here and you can save the file. Since I don't log in, it won't give me that option. So once you logged in, right, you can download that file. Let me check whether my credentials are working or not. So that I can download and log in.
So while downloading, we will get a JMX file.
Correct.
Okay.
Just a second. So it's done, it's logged in. So now you can see, go again here and see it's logged in with my credentials. Okay.
Right.
And you can click on save it and it will give few options. Okay. Selenium, JMeter, YAML file. You don't need these things for now. You can download the JMX file. See, it will ask your domain to include. See, you can sometimes you can see multiple domains here. Why? Because sometimes, right? So if you are aware of Fiddler or any other traffic capturing tool, right? It will capture traffic from all the what you call tabs that are open on your browser. Okay, so suppose you already have some XYZ website already opened in your browser, it will capture some traffic from that browser as well. Okay, since I don't have anything, right, it's only captured from Tutorials Ninja. In that, so if you get any other sites which are not related to your application, right, you can exclude those things. Okay, you can simply click on this, it will exclude. If you click on this, it will include. Okay. Since Tutorial Ninja is my application under test, I can include that application and you can simply click on save. So then it will simply export your JMX file. Okay. You just need to open this JMX file in this manner. Okay. Just go here, open, go to the particular path and you can simply download that file. Okay. So if you click on download, it will open in this way. Okay.
Okay.
So this is I mean, you can choose any option. It's up to individuals. So either you can go with this JMeter extension, or you can go to HTTP test record. So anything could be fine. So personally, I prefer this thing. Why? Because it's easy to capture the traffic, and you can some low-level requests and all those things you can exclude it here. So if you go here, go to this thing, right, you can see some advanced options here. It will give some good amount of options. It depends on the requirement. Okay. So you can make use of all these things. So if you want, you can edit it. If you don't need any specific request, you can edit on fly, and you can remove that request and download it again. So these things will be stored in your personal what you called JMeter account. If you want, you can go at any time and you can download whatever you want to do. So this is one open source extension. You can simply go and see. You can see here, right, 90,000 plus users are using this extension.
That's huge.
That's huge. So you can make use of this one, like any other extensions which are available. Or else, if you still want to use the HTTP recorder, you can simply use the HTTP recorder by going to non-test elements. Okay.
Right.
That's one way to record these things. Personally, I recorded this script using JMeter, sorry, JMeter. So that's why you can see it here, right? It's created by JMeter, and you can also this thing. So once you once you import this file, right, you will get these options. Okay. So under each, I will just enable this thing as well.
Okay, we have seen that you have created checkout and something like that, and under that we are getting this.
Yes.
Okay,
so under launch, I have these requests, and under search production, search product, I captured these requests. Under add to cat, these are the requests, and like that. Under checkout, I have few more requests like that. So I captured all the HTTP requests, nothing but the traffic that is going from the application when I perform different types of actions. Okay. When I launch the application, this is the request that is going. When I search the product, and these are the requests that are going. So in that way, so it captured all the traffic. So if you go to each request and see, right, so in basic, you can see what are the protocol. So whether it is HTTP or HTTPS, so that will be here. So what's the base URL? Okay. I told you, right, you can configure user-defined variables. Okay, and make use of those user-defined variables here. So if you go to my user-defined variables section, base URL is tutorialsninja.com. Why? Because throughout this application, I will be using this domain only. Okay. So if I parameterize that domain here, suppose in future these people are changed this domain name to some tutorialsxyz.com. Okay. So instead of going to each and every request and change the what you call server name here, I can simply change it here. So that will be reflected all over the requests. In the it will be simply reflected in all the other requests which are available in the JMX file. So that's the easy way to what you call update your code, and easy way to you can maintain your code. Okay. So that's why I just parameterized this thing. So this is the standard. Whenever you parameterize any component, right? So this is the way to use. Okay, it's $. Here I can show you $. Okay, you need to open the curly braces. Inside that, the parameter name. Okay, you just need to use this convention on JMeter. Okay, $, curly braces. Inside that, the parameter name. Okay. So it will capture whatever the parameter that we configured here. The value is tutorials. The runtime, so it will simply put this value here and it will execute. Okay. Port number. So if you are executing any applications which are dependent on ports, okay, suppose 8080, okay, the default HTTP port called 443. So you can configure here. Right now, I don't have any port requirement and it's blank here. So HTTP methods. So so you people aware of these things, right? HTTP requests, whether it is get, post, head, put, options, trace, delete. So you can configure it here. So this is the get request. So that's why it's a get. So path. So this is nothing but the request URI. So slash demo. Okay. So the actual request is tutorials.com slash demo. So this path will be captured here. Okay. Content encoding. So if there is any content encoding like UTF-8, so those things you can pass it here. Okay. So this is get request. That's the reason why we are not seeing any body or request parameters here. So I will show you post request. Just a second. Oh, okay. This get request also having some parameters. So if there are any parameters as part of the request, you can see it here. So search. So whatever the product that I searched, it's iPhone, right? So the root product slash search, you can see it here. So if you see any post request, right? Just a second, I will check whether there are any. Oh, yeah. Post parameters. These are all the post parameters captured by the tool. So those post parameters you can see it here. If you go to body data, right? Just a second. So this is also one important thing. So body data, right? If you see if your data is in XML or JSON format, so you can see the JSON format here. If you go to body data, so if your request is passing the request body in JSON, you can see the JSON format here in the request body here. Okay, you can see some name. Okay, so some XYZ. So like that, you can see all the data here in JSON format. If it is XML, you can see it in XML format here. Okay, so that's one thing. And files upload, these are some advanced concept. If you want to upload any files and any other stuff, right, you can give the file path parameters and all the stuff here. Okay, so basically these are the components that are available in basic section. If you go to advanced, you can see some advanced components like client implementation, embedded resources. So these things will be used something like if you are handling any asynchronous calls, like if you want to implement few things like concurrent thread pooling and all. So if you want to send the request, all the requests parallelly to the application server. So in those cases, so to put these things in a simple term, if you want to exactly mimic your browser's behavior, right, you can go to advanced section and configure all these things. Okay, so these things we can cover it later. That takes time, but if you want to put it in simple terms, if you want to mimic the exact browser behavior, you need to use this advanced concepts. Okay. Okay, next. So I told you, right, I will come to this transaction controller section. So how to use the transaction controllers? If you right click, I already covered the sampler section. So sampler, right? So whatever the request type. So basically there are various protocols available, right? So it can be LDP, UDP, FTP, TCP/IP. So there are different types of protocols. So I cannot cover everything right now, but so the one that I covered is the HTTP. Okay. So if you have the requirement to test any FTP related request, you can select the FTP one. Or if you want to select any SMTP, so you can select the SMTP sampler here. So it depends on the request and depends on the application, depends on the requirement. Okay, you can go to sampler and you can add any of the request. Okay. Then the next section is the logic controller. So which controller that you want to use. So for now, I will explain the transaction controller section. So if you just right click and add this transaction controller, right? So this will add this controller here. You can give any name to this controller. I'm giving this name as launch and comments appropriately. And the advantage of the controllers is like, so under one particular transaction controller, I can have multiple requests. Okay. So what the advantage is, right? Whenever you execute, right, it will simply group these all the requests. I mean, it's like a parent and these are our children's. Okay, child requests. Okay, it will simply group. If you select this option, generate parent sample. Okay. So for better understanding, I will just execute these things once. Okay. So that people can understand better. See how these things are coming. Okay. Yeah.
It's happening sequentially at this
So
moment.
yeah, so under a particular request, right, you can see these child requests. So you can simply expand and you can see. Okay, add to cart. You can see these 4 requests and check out. You can see all these requests. So
Right.
so when you what you call it, when you are presenting the report, instead of giving these requests, so see, basically you are sharing these reports to the end users, right? So clients. So
Right.
clients may or may not have technical knowledge. So if you simply give this thing, this URL, index.php root equal to common/cart info, and you are simply saying like this request took 30 seconds. Okay,
Right.
they don't have any clue and they don't have any idea. So what is this request and when we, so they only know application flow, right? So they don't
Right.
have any clue about this REST APIs or SOAP UA. So they simply they can't understand. So the whatever the report that you are presenting to the clients or the end users for better understanding, right? It's waste of it's you, again you need to spend a lot of time to explain the reports. So
Right.
just to make our life easy, if you simply say, rather than saying this cart.info took 60 seconds to respond, you can simply say add to cart is taking 25 seconds. Okay, so they can easily understand, okay, when we are doing this transaction, this particular add to cart what you call transaction took 25 seconds of time. Okay, that's one thing. And so that's the main use. Okay. Mhm. Uh, just a second. So yeah, that's the main use of this transaction controller. So likewise, I have a lot of transaction controllers. Once you execute this section, you will be seeing this view results tree. So
Right.
what is the purpose of this view results tree is like you can see what's actually happening. So once I executed this request, right, I can see everything. Like I can go to this particular request and can see. So okay, this is the get request. Okay, what are the request headers? So these are the headers. So what is the response data? So this is the response data. So everything I can see, whether this request is succeeded or not. Okay, I got 200. Okay, so this request is successful.
Right.
Okay, so debugging purpose and all those things, you can go to this particular request section and you can see how the request is going, what are the response data, and what are the other details which are available here. Okay, that's one thing. And
Venkatesh, how
yeah.
did we get this view results tree block? Like, can you just let me know?
Oh, sorry. So you can just go to this section and under the listeners, you can find out these things, different listeners which are available. So one is the view results tree, and you can have different types of other listeners as well. So now I can explain the aggregate report also so that people can understand the listeners in a better way. Yeah,
Okay.
let me add the aggregate report as well. Let me re-trigger that. So if you want to clear these things, right, you can use this option. You can clear it
Okay.
and
Okay.
re-execute again. So this is the execute button. I mean, the run button. If you want to stop the results, I mean, stop the execution, you can make use of the stop button. Okay, this is the shutdown button. It will simply shut down all the threads that are going from the JMeter. So there are various. If you want to search something, you can use this option. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
If you want to see the logs in the runtime, right, you can click on this button. You can see the logs here in the bottom
Right.
section.
Oh, this is useful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you want to see the execution time, right, you can see there is a timer here. So this is the execution time, and so this is nothing but how many active number of users are there in the system. So currently I configured only one, right?
Oh, I
So
see. Yeah. Yeah.
right, so one/1. If you have 50, so you can see like 25/50 means out of 50, 25 are inactive right now. So
Oh, I see.
that way you
Yeah.
can find out, you can find out the things here. So there are
Definitely.
other components. These are self-explanatory, like save, you can cut it, zoom in, zoom out, and these are self-explanatory things. But
Right.
yeah, yeah. So the execution is still going on. Okay. And some other options like these same things you can do it from here as well. Stop, shutdown, start. So this remote start, remote stop, these are all the things which are useful when you configure the distribution testing. And if you are running your tests, like there is a master and like 5 or 6 slaves, you can trigger all those slaves from here. Okay, so if you are going for the distribution testing master slave concept, you can make use of these options. Okay, these are some look and feel options. If you want to change the theme, then you can change it. If you want, these are zoom in, zoom out options, collapse all, choose long ways, all those things here. And if you want to create any heap dumps, these are some advanced concepts. So compile GSR 2 to 3. If you want to have that heap dump whenever you are executing, you can create a heap dump here. So this is section, and these are all self-explanatory things. So help section, you can see if you, whatever you need any help. So yeah, this is done. Okay, if you go to aggregate report, as I told you, right? So you can see the data here. So launch, you asked, right, what is sample? So the request. Okay. So triggered one sample, the average time it took is 550. Okay. So this is in milliseconds. Okay. All the values are in milliseconds, and the median 90%, 95%, 99. So these things I can explain later, but on a high level, 90% of users are seeing this thing in 550 millisecond. 95% of users are seeing in 550. So since we have only one user, right? That's why you haven't seen any variation here. If the number of users are high, you can see these values will be different. And minimum and maximum response times and error percentage. We haven't received any errors. That's why it's 0. Throughput is transaction per seconds. This is very important to find the server these response times and all. So this is transactions per second. So it's 1.8 transactions per second. So how many received and sent bytes? How much of data received and how much of data we have sent? So that is the thing. So debug sampler I have added for some other purpose. Just remove it right now. That's why you are seeing for debug sampler also some data, but it's not required. The purpose of debug sampler is different. So this way you can see the report. Okay, basically these reports are very important to analyze the data. So if you want to save this report, there is a save table data here. You just need to click on it and save this report in CSV format. Okay, you can see that aggregate.csv. You can save it later on. If you want to share this report to anyone, you can simply share this CSV file. So they can open and see the same data here. Okay. That's way that way you can make use of the listeners here. Okay. So this is about on a high level. This is how we need to configure the threads, and we need to launch and explore about various parameters. There are other things as well, like pre-processors, post-processors, assertions. People can easily understand. Like it's like suppose response assertion, right? So if I add response assertion, I can say like if the response is only 200, then pass the transaction, otherwise fail it. Okay.
So this means here we can use actual and expected result, and based on that we can use assertions.
We can exactly. So timers means you make use of various timers. So if you add this timer, right, I will simply share one example. I am putting this timer somewhere around here. Okay. Okay, so I'm giving like 3000 milliseconds, means 3 seconds. Okay, so what will happen is it will start executing these things. Okay, so when it comes to this request, okay, checkout/cart, it will wait for 3 seconds. Okay, then only it will go for the next request. It's like waits in automation testing. So it simply come here and wait for some time. Okay, in performance, we will call these things at think time. Why? Because just assume this scenario, like people will not do these transactions one after other, right? So JMeter is a tool. it will simply simulate these requests one after other. Simply it will hit once it gets the response, it will simply trigger the next one, and immediately next one, something like that. But in real time, it will not be like that. So if you are browsing any e-commerce site, you will launch the website and you can set the product, and later on you will say take some time, right, before adding that product. You will check few aspects. Okay, the color okay, or this configuration is okay or not. Then only you will add to cart. Okay, so between this transaction and this transaction, you will take some time, or you will think whether I need to purchase it or not, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what we call it as think time. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So as I told you before, right, you have to simulate the performance testing as close as the real-time scenarios, or real to the business transaction. So if you add these things like timers, right, think timer or some other timer here, then you can simply say like 30,000 seconds, then the user will wait 30 seconds here, and then only he will perform the next transaction. So you can make use of timers to again to mimic the real-time response and all the stuff. Okay. Config elements are nothing but okay. Suppose I will tell you one example here out of all these things. So CSV data config. Okay. Suppose I have iPhone here, right? So during my testing, I want to test this particular scenario with what you call various type of products. Okay, like iPhone, iPad, some mobile device, some laptop, and all those things. How can I configure those data here? Okay, so this is only one parameter. So in that case, I can use this CSV data config. I can put all the data in a CSV file. I will show you something like I have CSV file here. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Suppose so I can simply say like instead of URLs, so I will simply say like product. Okay. Okay. I can add multiple products here. iPhone, iPad, some XYZ, and some ABC. So different products, and I will save this file, and I will make use of that file name here. Okay, I will configure that file here. Okay, so and I will use the variable names with the header, so which is product. Okay, so and these are the different by whether you want to ignore the first line. So what will happen when the thread is ends, whether you want to take the same data again or not, whether the delimiter is comma separated or not. So all these things we need to configure here, and you can use this variable name over here instead of iPhone. Okay, same way dollar. Okay, product. So during runtime, right, it will simply stay. Suppose we have like 5 virtual users, right? Each user will search with different product. First user will take iPhone, second user will take iPad, third user will take a laptop, fourth user will take some XYZ one. Okay, instead of testing with the same iPad or same iPhone again, we can parameterize it. So basically the purpose of CSV data config is you can pass the data externally, okay, using some external files. So this can be useful.
Very useful.
This can be useful if you want to log in with different user IDs, if you want to test with different products, and it depends on your requirement. So this is one way. So you can find those type of useful elements in the config element section, like cookies, caches. You can handle cookies and caches. If you want to clear the cache, you can use the cache manager section. Counters, JDBC data for database. There are different options available. The main basically config element is like if you want to perform any these type of logical related actions, you can make use of these things. Okay. Listeners means basically used for the reporting purpose. Like you can see the results in tree, and you can use of aggregate reports, and you can if you want to see some graphs, you can use this aggregate graph section. Okay, so like that you have different listeners available to configure. You just need to add that particular listener, and you can make use of the rhythm. If you want to save all the responses to some file later on for debugging purpose, or you want to share it to developer, you can make use of the save response to file. So these things basically will be used, depends on your requirement, depends on your end goal, something like that. So basically the purpose of listeners is for reporting purpose. Okay, so yeah, that's the main components which are available in JMeter, so for execution purpose.
Venkatesh, do we have anything like to show our end user, like a report in terms of HTML files or something which we can generate from JMeter?
Yes,
Could you just
exactly.
showcase that?
Sure. So okay, we'll do one thing. We'll execute this same test from command line. Okay. Just
command line means we will be using non GUI this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so for command line execution, right? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to your JMeter. Okay, so again, people can ask like, so what is the purpose of command line execution if we already have GUI? So the best practice is like we should never use GUI for actual execution. See why? Because GUI is like UI based one, right? If you trigger like 1,000-2,000 users using UI based, I mean from UI, right? So what will happen is it will eat up all your system resources. So whatever the RAM that you have or whatever the processor that you have, so it will simply 50% of that usage will be taken by JMeter itself. Okay, so you will not have sufficient memory to trigger your whatever n number of users thing. So most of the resources will be taken by the JMeter. So that's why it's not advisable to use GUI for actual execution. GUI is only for debugging purpose, and if you want to develop your script, then only use the GUI. So for actual executions, you always need to use the command line. So I will open the command line here. Okay, so you need to go to your JMeter bin folder and open the command prompt here. Okay, so for JMeter GUI execution, you need to type this command JMeter -n-t. Okay, after that you need to give the path of your JMX file. Okay, my JMX file is here in this download section. Oh, sorry, not the download section, desktop. So this is the one. So just you can just take the path. Okay, you can simply go here to your command, just paste it. Okay, the name of your file, copy that one as well. Okay, so after that, if you need reports as well, right? So for that you need to type -l and give some name, test_demo dot. All the reports will be having this .jtl extension. Okay, so this is nothing but JMeter log.jtl. Okay, and -e-o. The question that you asked, if you want to make use of what you call any HTML reports, right? You can simply just a second. You can create one HTML folder here. Okay, so you need to give the path of this folder after -e, after -o. You can just a second. After that, you can just right click, again copy the path. Okay. /HTML. Okay, then you can execute from here. So it will simply trigger the command line execution from here. So you cannot see everything. I mean, you can't see what is happening, which requests are going. It will simply show some summary here, and later on your test will be stopped. And so you can make use of this test demo.jtl and these HTML reports to analyze your execution at later point of time. So the usage of main use of this command line execution is it will not take much of your system resources, and it will be very I mean, it will take very less memory, less CPU. So the way that, I mean, it will be very useful whenever you are doing your load testing with high number of users. Why? Because you need those machines and high infrastructure to trigger that many amount of virtual users.
Any idea of time we get from like this command line, like at what time we will be getting our results or our execution to be
Yeah,
completed?
it depends. It depends on the configuration that you have. Suppose if you configure your test should be run for 1 hour, right? So this execution will go on for 1 hour. So since we haven't configured anything, it should complete by now. Or else we'll do one thing for time being. I already generated one report here. Okay. Just a second, so that we can make use of that report just to see the results. So once the execution is done, right, you can have this type of okay, HTML report generated. Okay, you just need to go to this index.html and open this in Google Chrome. Okay, so you can see the report like beautiful graphs here, like what are the file that's generated when I triggered that execution. Okay, when it stopped. Okay, so here you can see these pie charts, like how much percentage got passed and failed. So for that request, what is the request that I triggered, how many number of samples, what's the response time, and all those things you can see it here. Okay, you can share these type of dashboards to the end users so that they can see what's happening. So since this is for one request, you may not see much of variations. Okay, but you can get all these graphs like response over time, these things, active threads over time, and all these
Venkatesh,
things.
what is important in these report? Like from where we can come to conclusion, like our
Yes, it depends. It depends. Suppose, so just assume this thing, like your response times are taking like more than 60 seconds. Okay, so then you need to analyze why the response times are taking 60 seconds, which request is actually taking more than 60 seconds, and which request, suppose so during execution you are getting like 504 and 500 internal server errors, these things for some XYZ APIs. So in during that type of analysis, you have to make use of these statistics, like you need to get the label first, and from that you need to dig onto the requests, and you need to identify which request at what point of time is throwing 500 internal server error, and then you can go to your AWS or Azure account and go to application insights or application logs, and you need to identify that particular request, and then onwards you can analyze what happened to that request and why it is got failed. So it depends. So it depends on the at whether it is an issue with response time, or suppose sometimes what will happen is like your application server CPUs or memories will be like going to 90%, 95%, and all. Sometimes like it will. So the ideally it should be around 70 to 80%. If we cross more than 80%, we will so the application should not handle the load. So it will simply throw some errors, or it will simply fail the request. So in that case, you need to check the application servers what you called results, like how, if you want to see my local response, right, for CPU, and you can go to this performance and you can calibrate from here. Okay, what is the CPU, what is the memory, what is the disk, and all the stuff here, right? So similarly, if you go to AWS and if you configure CloudWatch and all, you can observe the same things for that particular instance of AWS instance. What is the CPU, what is the memory, what is the disk? So whenever you trigger your results, so it's best practice to monitor the AWS instance or Azure instance CPU, memory, and everything as well. If those things are ideally within 60 to 70% of range, so your application will run smooth. So similarly in our local machine also, right, if your CPU is around 90%, you cannot do anything. Your system will simply got hanged and you cannot perform any multitasking. So same thing will happen to the cloud instances as well. If it is over the 90%, you are simply you are simply triggering more requests and it won't handle. It will simply crash and it will give you some errors. So you need to monitor those type of server responses as well. So it depends. It depends. So ideally, you have to monitor everything. You need to analyze everything. You need to analyze each and every error, why you got that error, and so ideally everything will be useful. Not only you cannot specify like only this thing, but everything will be useful. Throughput. So how many number of requests it can able to handle at particular, I mean, within a second. So TPS, transactions per second. So everything will be useful. You cannot pinpoint like only this thing, but everything will be useful. But end user, like client's point of view, I think this will be enough to understand the end users, how the application is behaving. So these things will be useful for the executives, for architects and all, everything, I mean, performance testers to analyze that results, everything will be useful. You cannot say any particular request.
Okay, okay.
So this way you can present the dashboards as well. So so this is about the JMeter tool, how you can configure the how you can install the tool, how you can configure simple requests, and how to add the listeners, how to trigger the test, and how to monitor the data. Monitor the executions and everything from here. You can see in this particular session. So I hope so this will be useful for people who are interested and who want to learn JMeter, so they can start from here, some basics, and they can take any example of, I mean, any demos website, and they can practice so that they can understand other things in a better way. Once they start exploring all the other components I told you, right? So not only these things, so you can find a number of controllers and number of requests. So various things here. So people need to start exploring the stuff. So I have only explained about HTTP request, but you can configure any other request as well, like suppose OS sampler. If you want, so this is very useful. If you want to execute anything from command line, you can configure it here. You can see easily see command parameters. Okay. So you can pass the command line parameters here. So there are other request samplers as well. So JDBC. So if you want to execute any queries, so you can see, right, SQL query, select statement. So you can configure it here. It depends upon the your requirement. So if you want to configure those type of requests, you can use it. So timers also, I told you, right? I used only constant timer, but you have various timers like constant throughput timer, uniform random timer, synchronizer timer. You can use all those things to get the precise timings. So this suppose just an example. So if you want to use constant timer, every time that transaction will wait only for that particular element time. If you want to use, if you use this uniform random timer, right? So you can simply it will not be like constant. You can randomly achieve the time. So one user will wait for 30 seconds, another user will wait for 50, and the other user will wait for 20 seconds. So in that way, I already told you, right, it will mimic the real-time real-time test scenarios. Okay, rather than simply waiting for 30 users. Every user you should not wait for 30 users, right? Suppose it depends on your requirement. If you want to configure loops, okay, you can see loop here, while loop, if condition for each controller. Okay, there is everything. But instead of using the coding, right, you can simply use this beautiful GUI controllers here, and you can simply configure the conditions and everything here. So these are some advanced concepts here.
So in short, you are trying to say there is a lot of things available in JMeter apart from HTTP request and small controllers up like this. So learning is never ending when you will use JMeter.
Correct. So it's like a ocean. So if you want to explore, right, there are more number of things to explore, and it's very good tool. So in my experience, it's a one of the best tool in the market to test your applications. You can customize like anything, and there is a huge community support. And one more thing I forgot to tell you is like there is some third party plugins as well. So if you go to this JMeter's plugin site, right, so you can find various plugins, so variables from Redis data. So if you people are aware of Redis cache, they can use this Redis data one. So there are n number of the plugins available. You can make use of the plugins as well. So you can browse a lot of plugins here. So depends on your requirement. You can add these plugins to. These are simply jar files. Okay, you can simply download this particular jar file and you can just configure it. I will tell you how to configure these things in a later section. Like you need to put these things in your library files and reset the JMeter. Then that particular thing will come to your what you call JMeter section, or else you can configure your JMeter plugin manager here, and you can directly download from that section as well, these plugins. That's another concept. So you can make use of some third party plugins as well. So this is very handy and useful tool for various type of requirements that people are having when they are doing the performance testing. So there are few there are so many things to explore. It's up to the individuals. So they just can start from the scratch, like configuring the simple requests, and they can go forward.
Okay. Thank you for such a detailed session, Venkatesh. So I have few questions if I can ask at this moment of time.
Yeah, sure.
So like how to plan our career in performance testing? Like, can freshers or low level experience and high level experience can enter into this field with ease? What are your suggestions or advice on this?
So anyone can learn performance testing, whether you are freshers or experienced people, or if you are already doing automation, if you want to switch to or functional testing, if you want to switch to performance testing, yes, you can do it. But as I told you, right, you should have that a passion to learn new tools. And again, that's not a mandatory thing, but if you know Java, that will be very useful when you're moving to performance testing. Why? Because this is Java based tool. So that's very much useful for, especially for automation testers who are doing the Selenium Java automation. They can easily get that grip over this tool. Obviously for freshers, I will surely recommend this is the best tool to start their career. There are huge opportunities in terms nowadays. Why? Because everyone is taking the performance very seriously. As I told you, right, it's not like 10 years back people doing the performance testing at the end. Now it's like a part and parcel of the agile. Now people are doing this performance testing within the sprint itself. Now the requirement is also high. So people need more performance testers to do the stuff. And nowadays all the applications are hosted in Azure, either Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. So you need to test the Google cloud infrastructure as well. So people who are having DevOps background also, they have very good career if they want to move to performance testing. Why? Because they know the infrastructure very well, DevOps people.
Right.
So they can easily learn this thing if they want to switch to, or not. I cannot say like you should switch to performance testing. It's like your secondary tool, or your another skill set. You can add it to your career. So yeah, I would recommend this tool to everyone. Anyone can learn, if you are experienced or fresher or anyone.
Awesome. One more question from my end. Like, what are the tools which are currently famous in the market or mostly used for performance testing apart from JMeter? And what is your take on those tools?
So apart from JMeter, the other famous tool is HP's, not HP's, Microfocus. I mean, it's acquired by Microfocus now, Loadrunner. So Loadrunner is also very good tool, but the only thing is it's a commercial tool. It depends on your companies and your requirement. If you want to go with Loadrunner, you can go with LR as well, Loadrunner. So Loadrunner is also a beautiful tool. You can configure. I mean, it's much more simpler than JMeter. Why? Because it's commercial, right? So you can get excellent technical support from the Microfocus people. It's very good tool to use. So Loadrunner supports almost all protocols. So JMeter is having some limitations, like you cannot desktop applications and all, you cannot test it. But LR you can test RDP protocols, Citrix, HTTP. Anything, name it, they support all the protocols. So I would recommend LR as well if you want to learn the Loadrunner. So it's one of the best tool, and it's there from very long time with great technical support and all. So LR also very good tool to learn. So yeah, I recommend LR. And there is few other tools called Neoload. Neoload also very good tool. You can learn Neoload as well. That's also commercial tool. There's one more tool called Locust. It's a Python-based framework. I think it's open source tool. I haven't explored that tool much. And Gatling. There are other tools as well, but if you ask me to name top 3, I can simply name JMeter, Loadrunner, and Neoload. So yeah, from my experience,
Awesome.
you can learn these things.
Okay. So Venkatesh, we have came to closure of our session, and so anything else you want to say before we wrap up this session?
So few things, like I would like to thank you and Arun for this opportunity. So you people are doing a great job in terms of sharing the knowledge to the QA community, especially the QA Fox team. So it's great initiative, the STET, I can say. Like so you are taking people from different backgrounds. I have seen some of your previous videos as well, like the codeless automation and the other Unix commands and everything. So it's a great thing that you're doing for QA community. People who wanted to learn any tool, they can go watch the videos, and they can. It's not like they can get what you call from end-to-end knowledge, but it's a great platform to kickstart. So kickstart their career, and to switch to some other tool if they want to learn. So it's a great thing. It's a great job that you people are doing for QA community. So I would like to thank for inviting me to this session. So yeah, thanks again to Ajay and Arun.
Thank you, Venkatesh, for your kind words and supporting us. And thanks for being part of our STET journey as well. And thanks for giving such a great session on JMeter, I would say. Hope our audience will learn a lot of things from here going forward. And we are expecting more such sessions from you in the upcoming days, Venkatesh. Thanks for your time, I would say. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.